Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ panel here on NoDQ.com. My name is Aaron Rift. I am being joined as usual by the panel guests. First we have the West Coast professor, good old JM Jeff Meacham. We are also being joined by the self-proclaimed, or actually officially in our opinions, the greatest columnist in the NoDQ galaxy, Mr. Virtue's Rage. And we have a very special guest today. I think this is going to be one of our best panels, maybe our best panel to date. We have a guy you might recognize. Some of you out there that are on YouTube, you check out the YouTube podcast. We have Joe Cronin of the Joe Cronin Show on today. How's it going, Joe?
Hey guys, how you doing? I just realized I need to come up with a new moniker or something that's catchy, you know?
How about the original graduate of the Heenan School of Broadcast Journalism, Joe Cronin?
That's a great one. That is so good. I feel it's awkward now, though. I feel like without his blessing.
Trust me, Bobby would have given you his blessing. I know Bobby pretty well. He would have given you the blessing for sure.
He was very nice at WrestleCon. I know that.
Bobby was one of the best guests we ever had. Aaron will remember that back in the day. We had him on twice. He along with RVD, made our channel what it was.
I do. I can say I'll never forget that. I remember when you guys had those interviews, especially RVD.
That was a long time ago with Bobby, though.
I never met Bobby. Stop bragging, man.
Hey, you know,
that's all right.
I only met him because he did a signing at Rob Store, ironically enough. So that the two main guests kind of converged. Anyway, moving right along here.
Moving on. So yeah, Bobby had a lot of great moments in wrestling, but this actually is a good lead into the first person I want to mention on the topic of today's video, the biggest career-ruining moments in wrestling history. So these are moments where you had a wrestler or character basically go downhill. There was an event or a series of events that led to that person's downfall. And the first person I wanted to mention involves Bobby Heenan, so I felt that this would be a nice little tie-in. And that person is Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster. So Terry Taylor had this great career before coming to WWE. Tell us about it, Jeff.
Well, he was a multiple-time champion in the NWA, and he was one of the original UWF TV champions. I'm sure Aaron remembers the UWF, the original UWF, very well. And he was going places. He had a unification match, I believe, with Nikita Koloff at one of the Starrcades for the TV championships. And then WWE signs him, and even before he put on the stupid little red rooster thing, they called him the Red Rooster. He was managed by Bobby Heenan, and it still didn't help him. He was still miserable. He was one of the worst gimmicks I ever saw, and it was just bad. Just bad.
Jeff, what's the truth to this, though, with that Terry Taylor Red Rooster gimmick? I've heard things about Vince McMahon thought Terry Taylor was a cock, was very arrogant, and that led to what was a goof gimmick.
Yeah.
What's the truth to that? Because I've heard it, but I don't know 100%.
Having not met Terry myself until later in his time when he was already behind the scenes, I can't attest to that personally. Terry was always very nice to me and everything, but I have heard through the grapevine that early in his career when he was getting ready to join WWE, when he was still part of the Jim Crockett era and the UWF era, I heard he was kind of a prick. Yeah, so it would not surprise me a bit if he had been labeled that by Vince McMahon on purpose. But Joe, what do you think about the Terry Taylor Red Rooster situation? Joe,
did he freeze on us?
He did. He's thinking intently about the situation.
Okay, we'll keep this going, and hopefully he'll be back to give his thoughts.
I heard that all he really needed to do was own it. You know how WWE is with making you giving you goofy stuff, but if you run with it, you can be successful. And a lot of people don't think Terry Taylor ran with it. They thought he'd make that whole thing a joke.
Well,
which made it look like it failed.
Well, I mean, I think Joe will agree with this. If Vince labeled him the Red Rooster because he was the word you said.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to say that earlier. By the way, Aaron, you might have to go bleep that out.
Bleep it out, brother. Go ahead, Joe.
It's just a rooster noise. That's all you did.
But right.
No, I can't quite remember now. Like him working with Heenan, I don't remember it myself. I remember as a kid, like it just didn't work even as a kid, right? Because I think I was 7 years old when he debuted with that, and even as a kid, it was just like, well, this is lame, But to put, was he still the Red Rooster when Heenan was with him? Right? They put him with. Yeah. Yes. So it was like, wow, they're putting like one of the most iconic managers with the Red Rooster. So that's the only thing that kind of contradicts like the whole thing. Like, why in the world would Bobby Heenan be paired with this guy who's got this inevitable like failure coming, and just wanted to see him kind of go down. Like, I mean, did he really think it was going to elevate him to any kind of serious level? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think McMahon envisioned Terry Taylor going out there and going like this with the hair. I think Taylor came up with that because he was ticked off.
The hair was after he turned babyface. He actually was called the Red Rooster, but then when he turned babyface, that's when he started doing the thing with the hair and clucking around like a chicken. And yeah, I mean, I was a kid too, same thing, like 7 years old around that time, and I just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. But Joe, I want to ask you, in your opinion, what do you think is the best example of somebody who had a solid career and then something happened to cause the whole thing to go to crap?
Oh man, well, I mean, there's a couple of those to me, but I mean, it depends on whether like we're talking about like success or like why they didn't get pushed in the WWE. Like I mean, there's so many examples of that. Like Bart Gunn. I mean, you could talk about Bart Gunn. I mean, because what he did, I'm sure that's on your list somewhere. But like what Bart Gunn did, technically he didn't do anything wrong. Really, he sort of just did his best, and he got punished for doing that.
Well, Bart Gunn, the whole Butterbean thing is what did him in. I mean, that was essentially what ruined his career in WWE. He won the Brawl for All, which I guess helped him have some kind of rebound after the Smoking Guns. Jeff?
Oh, no, I was going to say, he went from the Smoking Guns, which was a very successful tag team, to the new, which is never a career anything, Midnight Express. And then from there, thank God for the Brawl for All. He had a great rebound, like I said, 98. He won the Brawl for All, and then Butterbean literally almost took his damn head off WrestleMania the following year. So it was bad.
And that was it for him.
Yeah. That was it. He didn't do a thing after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I remember at home, I was just like, I actually, believe it or not, at home, I started thinking to myself, like, oh, what's next for him? Is he going to come back? I as a 15-year-old, I thought, this guy needs one more follow-up to this story. It would almost be like, to me, not the same example, but kind of like Conor McGregor when he lost a fight back to, I think it was Diaz or something. And you want to see that next fight. Like, how's he going to come back from this? But there was no retort to that loss. That's it, you know?
Yeah, I think Bart should have came back as a full-fledged heel and said, you know what, I might have got squashed by Butterbean, but I beat all of you guys, you know, and then they could have maybe made something out of that. But
I remember Virtue. When Butterbean beat him, his head almost spun 180 degrees around his neck. There was no coming back from that. His head, he went all the way around and fell on flat on his back. He could have
done the broken gimmick before Matt Hardy.
Right?
Yeah, broken Bart Gunn. I like that. It has a nice ring to it, actually.
That would definitely have been a thing. It was bad.
Well, you know,
goodness.
You know, on the topic of the Brawl for All, I think you could say the same thing about Dr. Death Steve Williams, because he was a huge star, and then that, you know, the whole concept of the Brawl for All was to elevate Dr. Death Steve Williams. They thought he was going to win the whole thing, and then he ended up losing, and that pretty much. Well,
the biggest problem with the Brawl for All was it wasn't shoot. It was still gimmicked. You know, I'm sorry. The problem was it was shoot, and WWE didn't account for, you know, guys actually being tougher than they were as their characters. So when Dr. Death, who was the legitimate tough guy, went in there with, I think it was Bart, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Bart knocked him out.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Bart knocked him out. We were like, Bart Gunn, the cowboy, knocked out Dr. Death.
Yeah, it was gimmick to a point, though, because didn't they keep Shamrock out of it, and didn't Severn get pulled from it because they wanted Dr. Death?
They were trying to work it, but, you know, it's like the UFC. You know, there's just some things you cannot work, and
exactly.
Well, they were mad at Bart anyway. They were mad anyway before the Butterbean match because, hey, this guy wasn't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
But if he'd gone out and knocked out Butterbean, though, I mean, that would have been.
If he would have knocked out a super fight champion Butterbean at WrestleMania, he would have been made right there. That would have been everything for him.
Or just if he lasted with him, like in a heart, like if he took some shots and he fought hard and then he got knocked out, you know. But just to get rocked, it was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was bad, yeah. Two big solid hits, and he was done. That was it.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a couple of earlier ones and maybe get your guys' thoughts on these guys. You know, one on here I have is when Smash went to the Repo Man gimmick. You know, he was pretty successful at Demolition for all those years, and then they turned him into the Repo Man, and the gimmick basically went nowhere. But some people have fond memories of it. I mean, Virtue, what do you think of the Repo Man? And what about Nails? Nails is another guy I wanted to mention.
I had Nails on my list today.
I'll let you guys talk about Nails, but as for Smash, Axe obviously was at that period of time where he was done, walking away for a little bit, health reasons. So they had Crush come in. So you had Crush and Smash. To me, there was no reason why they couldn't keep Demolition together. And yes, we ended up getting Kona Crush or whatever he was, at the Hawaiian Crush after that, and we got the Repo Man. Now, I liked the Repo Man for what it was. It was good, a good heel character for like Superstars, WWF Challenge. But you're right. How do you go from Demolition, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, to that gimmick and recover from it? You can't. So that was like the transition into the early 90s leading into that 1995 era. I know Repo happened before then, but think about those individual weird gimmicks that we talked about in the previous panel video. That Repo Man kind of started those weird gimmicks. Joe,
him and Skinner both.
Joe?
Those are.
Are you Joe, Jeff?
I was just pointing out him and Skinner were both the early crap gimmicks. Sorry,
Go ahead, Joe.
True.
I know.
I think you're right, but to me, like, my memory is that it just worked. Like, I didn't even know that at that time, because I think I was so young, I didn't realize it was him. You know,
I didn't know it.
And
it was cheesy good. It was cheesy good.
What about Nails?
That's what I think.
Nails. Oh my God. The problem, Nails was a decent gimmick in and of itself, but Kevin, the guy behind Nails, had just a ridiculous temper, and you don't get in Vince's face and threaten to beat him up. That was the career ruiner right there. Not the Nails gimmick, just the actual threatening Vince McMahon. If you want to threaten Vince McMahon, you might as well give yourself the pink slip. Goodbye.
Yeah, he was responsible.
Jeff, he was
for
brought
his
in.
demise.
He was brought in to face Boss Man. Were they trying to work a program with Undertaker? Is that what happened?
I think they were going to work that after the Survivor Series match, the Night match, and they actually had a cover with them on the WWE Magazine cover, and then Kevin threatened, Vince in the office. Now that was it. That was just it right there.
Right.
Yeah, that's a layup right there with Nails. You can't. You attack Vince McMahon. I mean, everybody knows that now. If you have the gall to do that, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. If you're threatening the lead guy in charge of the company in sports entertainment, you are not going to have a career, period.
Well,
he actually went to WCW as the convict, didn't he, Aaron?
I was just going to say that. WCW, I mean, in typical WCW fashion, they actually did hire him. And it's funny because I think even if the Vince stuff had not happened, I don't think he would have gone anywhere. He went to WCW and nobody really cared. It was just a one-off match, and that was it for him. But yeah,
he was a bad wrestler, though. I mean, he had a match in Japan or somewhere against Giant Gonzalez. It was atrocious.
Well, okay, but it's Giant Gonzalez. He had actually a decent little run.
But yeah, guys like Taker could at least, because it was the Undertaker against Giant Gonzalez, can pull it off. Nails, definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, he had a decent little run in the AWA with Sherry as his manager, but again, he wasn't going to be a long-term success ever.
Right. Now, I wanted to bring up another guy in WCW right around this same period, the man who was formerly known as Tugboat and then Typhoon, and then went to WCW as the Shockmaster. Such an iconic flop that an action figure was actually made of the Shockmaster falling down. So WWE has found a way to capitalize on that moment. I have to say, that's probably the biggest example of a guy's career just flushing right down the toilet. But at least for Fred Ottman, he's making some money out of it with the action figures. So good for him, I guess. What do you guys think?
God bless Uncle Fred. God bless Uncle Fred and his poor gimmick. I swear to God, it was one of the worst things ever. But like you said, WWE and Fred Ottman are making money off it. So there you go. That's the example of WCW being what they were and Vince McMahon being what he is. That's a perfect example right there.
I got to tell you, I just saw him. He was at the company I do commentary for, his show, and there were people there with Shockmaster posters. So he's gone from the laughing stock of everything to a revitalization of a career here. He's infamous for that. So
he is.
In a way, it's such an epic fail that it's almost made his career in a way. You could say the opposite. True. Instead of ruining his career, it's made him more famous than what he would have been known for doing. And
let's be honest, Aaron. With Typhoon and Earthquake, I think the Natural Disasters had a great run. This happened after that, so that was a lot of pressure for him to be able to equal that success. And
Virtue, am I wrong? Because the big story behind the Shockmaster is they rehearsed it, it went well, and then either David Crockett or somebody put that board up, and nobody told anybody. It's that is WCW in a nutshell. Production doesn't tell talent, and boom, that's it. It's done.
Yep.
There's a couple of Attitude Era guys I wanted to talk about. Ahmed Johnson and Mark Merrill. Actually, I guess you would call this maybe pre-Attitude Era, close to the Attitude Era, 97 era. So Ahmed Johnson came in 95, and he was being groomed to be one of the top baby faces of the company. He had a great look. He was intense in the ring, and the fans liked him. He was popular, but things happened with that guy, and I think the combination of the injuries and the booking really did him in. In particular, I think him joining the Nation of Domination was really the final nail in the coffin for him, because he spent the better part of a year feuding with Farouk, and then all of a sudden he's friends with the guy, and a couple weeks later they turned him back to being a babyface. Jeff, your thoughts on that? And
I actually was going to pass to Joe, because you pretty much said, like, he spent almost a year feuding with the leader of the Nation, and then he joins the Nation in solidarity with his brother, and then right away he's back to babyface again. It was like, oh, it was bad. It was bad.
That made him look so weak, and it pushed him aside. The minute he was in that, he went that way, it was like you could see that he wasn't the leader. And the minute that you realize this guy that by himself as a face was such a strong character wasn't the leader of something, he became weak. And that's, to me, you could see that as a kid, like this is not working for him. That was the end of that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think Ahmed Johnson's career got killed a little bit earlier than that. I mean, I think he had a great program with Goldust. I think he won the Intercontinental Championship at King of the Ring 96.
Yep, something like that.
And I think the whole Goldust thing got pulled back because of the controversy around that character. I think that is when Ahmed started. I think once he became the Intercontinental Champion, they didn't have any good feud booking for him. I think that's when he started falling downhill, and then he got thrown into the feud with Farouk and the Nation and all that crap.
And that was his best. That work with Goldust, that was the last thing you can remember that he did that was great, and it was one of the best things he did.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is they threw him into the feud with Farouk, and they did the injury angle where he hurt his kidney or whatever it was. But having Farouk debut in that god-awful blue outfit, that's what killed Ahmed Johnson. The fact that he was getting hurt by a gladiator managed by Sonny, it was like, what?
He looked like he was Max Moon's gatekeeper or something.
Right? Yeah, like Max Moon.
Some off of Thor.
Yeah, it's just like Max Moon's friend from the ghetto or something. It was like, oh brother, it was
almost
terrible.
Killed before it even began, and luckily he was able to come back from that.
Thank God he recovered from that. Thank God for the APA. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not going to comment much on Mark Merrow. I'll let all three of you. I think what killed Mark Merrow, Sable.
Yeah. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, and I think it was Sable, and it was almost like real life, or it was like the story being told behind the scenes. I know they didn't really like Mark at the time that much, but yeah, everything that he was doing on screen with, Sable, I'm jealous of Sable and everything, it was almost really happening behind the scenes in a different way. And he got overshadowed by, his career put Sable over. I mean, he put his career on the line to put Sable over and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Power bombed him.
Yeah, it literally was his career. Because he never showed up again.
But see, all these examples today in wrestling, you can always go back and rebuild somebody. But whenever you hear somebody speak about this in a shoot interview, they always say, and that was it from there. Their career was over. He got powerbombed by a woman, or he got knocked out by Butterbean and that stuff. But there's always a way to bring the character back out and recreate it. Yep. But they always go to that line of, they can never come back from being powerbombed from a woman. What do you guys think about that? Because I always think that that's a cop-out. It's like, no, you just didn't like them anymore because you could have fixed this.
It's hard.
Well, I think,
go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Aaron. No, go ahead, Aaron. You're good.
Well, I was going to say it's just hard because I think the fans see a guy in a certain light, and when you're booked so poorly, it's hard for the crowd to get invested in a character despite booking a guy well. You could say, it's not necessarily a death sentence because somebody like Jinder Mahal, he was in 3MB, and I think we all pretty much wrote off Jinder Mahal. He was never going to be
Drew McIntyre as well.
Yeah, Drew McIntyre. Yeah. I think Drew McIntyre is a better example than Jinder Mahal because, Jinder Mahal is WWE champion, but he's still been booked very poorly as champion. But I would say with Drew McIntyre, that guy definitely rebounded in a big way, and I think the fans are starting to take him seriously again.
Drew took his own advantage. He left WWE because he knew it was going bad, went to TNA, got himself the World Championship. TNA World Championship, not the most credible thing, but he established his own credibility at TNA and on the Indies. And then when he came back for NXT, people were like, dude, Drew McIntyre's back. Holy crap. And they immediately put the title on him. It was awesome.
I think WWE was seeing a lot of Galloway's work and Evolve, because don't they have like an affiliation with them?
They do indeed.
I think his work there really helped WWE want him back. And you know what? I'm going to say this right now. They might eventually get EC3 back. I think they've been watching him.
I was thinking another one that, Aaron, I don't know who's on your list or not, but another one that had a career ruiner but has come back masterfully, Cody.
Yeah. He's on the list.
Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes. He wanted to be Stardust, but there wasn't the Stardust he ended up being. It was horribly pushed downward. He's like, you know what? I'm bouncing. And now he's Ring of Honor. He was Ring of Honor champion this year, and he's doing tremendous things. He's part of the Bullet Club. He's got the merchandise sales. He's doing what WWE could not do for him. He's doing it himself, which I think is great. Did
you get the same vibe from this that you got back in WCW? Because it was like when some of these guys went over to WCW, they became way cooler to me. Like, even as a kid, like Diesel, even as a kid, I didn't really like Diesel that much. Razor Ramon was Razor Ramon. But when I saw Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, I was like, wow, to me, they're so much bigger now than they were. And then they come back eventually with that, with that sort of character behind them. That's what Cody did. That's what Drew Galloway did. When Drew Galloway left 3MB, you were like, this guy's a cartoon joke. And next thing you know, he's got a beard. He seems like a...
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I agree.
Great point. Joe,
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back, guys.
No problem.
Here's where that didn't work, though. A great point in all of those. But I think when Bret Hart went to WCW, and that killed his career. I mean, let's face it. Of course, the Goldberg match is really what did it. I think he got a concussion there. In most cases, revitalization of careers are absolutely possible. And I think when companies don't do that, they just gave up on the guy for whatever reason.
Yeah,
he was such a great heel. Bret Hart was such a great heel, though, on the mic. Like, that stuff he did. There's a lot of people out there that hate his promo work, but that heel stuff he did was amazing.
Well, yeah, 97, he was at the top of his game. But what I was trying to say was, we see guys that go to other promotions, and that's where they're able to get a fresh start and make a name for themselves again and rebuild their characters. So Cody did it going on the indies, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were able to go to WCW and just reinvent themselves. So it can definitely happen, but it is a challenge for a lot of guys, and sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it's just age catching up with them. I was pretty upset about how WWE handled the Legion of Doom in that 97-98 run. These guys were considered one of the greatest tag teams of all time, but then the company started, doing the stuff with Hawk coming out there acting drunk, and it would have been nice if the storyline had a happy ending. They actually did a storyline where Hawk and Animal got back together and LOD finished off on a high note, but that never really happened. They just fizzled out, and that was the end of it. Now, maybe that was because of Hawk's real-life personal problems, but it felt like that drunk angle really, hurt the Legion of Doom and their
there goes the set.
Their legacy in wrestling. You think of these guys, these two big, strong monsters, and then, oh, wow, Jeff just had a major botchamania moment. Shockmaster moment, ladies and gentlemen.
Shockmaster moment. That's it. All right, here we go.
Didn't you just want to see LOD come down on the bikes one last time? That would have been the happy ending. Like, oh, my back and on the bike.
I mean, they did come back in 2003 for that last match, which I'm actually glad that happened, that Hawk and Animal got that one last big Road Warrior pop, and I think it had been so many years since their last run that the fans forgot about all that stuff and remembered them fondly for the stuff that they were doing in WWE.
If I remember in Boston, because I was there at WrestleMania 14, I remember thinking it was like a mini version of that. It was cool. It's kind of that they came back with Sonny, but it still was. It was too soon. It wasn't the pop it wasn't as exciting as I felt it was supposed to be for me. I was like, oh, they're back together again.
Yeah, because it was like the third or fourth time they had teased breaking up and reuniting.
Well, you remember it was just so bad going into WrestleMania and even after WrestleMania because they got killed by the Outlaws in 97. The Outlaws just completely buried them along with DX, and they only came back with the gimmick because, again, Vince trying to reinvent something in his own image. It just ruined him. So.
And Hawk falling off the Titantron, that was like the worst moment for me.
Yeah, that was almost a legitimate ruiner for life.
That might be for the next podcast. I'm looking at the topic we're going to talk about next time. That might be the whole.
True.
If anybody wants to laugh, they have to go watch that video because that will That it's really
that was horrible.
It might be sad to a lot of people, but now to me, I can laugh a little bit at it because it's so bad. It's like, what were they doing? You know, it's sad though. What they're doing with him though in his actual.
Yeah.
And like the stick figure, like Hawk is pushed off, and then you see like this little stick image falling down. It looks so
fall off the trunk. Like, oh yeah.
It was like Married with Children. You remember when Al used to fall off the roof? If you ever watched it, like
it's a whole plush toy. Yeah.
Yeah, a doll would fall. Like you'd see the doll crashing down on the TV, and they didn't care. They just left it in.
Yeah. Sorry, while I was stepping away. Did anybody mention Mike Awesome yet for WCW?
We're getting there. We can actually talk about WCW now because there's a lot of instances where WCW screwed up characters. Mike Awesome
was the most dominant ECW champion that they could get after they let Taz go. And he just went WCW. It was almost instantaneous career crud. It was like there wasn't even a transition. It was just like he had that one moment with Canyon, which happened in the Kemper Arena, by the way, which was a horrible, tasteless moment, and then just done.
It was the Fat Chick Thriller and the That 70s gimmicks.
No, what I'm saying is it started with the tasteless moment in the Kemper Arena with him throwing Canyon off the cage. That started it, but the two horrible gimmicks were just he never recovered from that. Ever, as far as North America is concerned. He never recovered from that moment.
You know what, Jeff? I remember going to a ECW house show in Youngstown, Ohio, and Mike Awesome was the champion, but he was not there that night. And the big buzz going around was, hey, he's leaving for WCW. And, as bad as that was for ECW, everyone was like, oh, wow, he's going to WCW. This is going to be interesting. Yeah. And everyone was excited. And I remember, like, when it happened, and I think his debut on Nitro, didn't he come into the ring and grab the mic and he said something and it was like, what?
He jumped in the ring, attacked Kevin Nash with a crutch, his own crutch, without the title though, because ECW got the injunction to keep the title off TV. And then he cut this promo. It was just like, all right.
Yeah.
If you say so, Mike.
And what about Taz?
Now, you know what? I don't know about Taz because he came in, he had the immediate impact. He beat Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. He
had a good little run there in the hardcore division. He won the ECW championship back as a WWF superstar. I think the thing for Taz that really knocked him off the perch was the feud with JR in the summer of 2000.
Well,
that was awful.
I would say what about Taz losing to Triple H while being the ECW champion?
I think that hurt ECW more than it did Taz. I think.
I'm not sure because I felt when Taz came in, he felt like a main event guy, and then after losing to Triple H, it was clear, Taz isn't really a credible champion. Triple H is the real deal, that sort of thing.
Well, but yeah, I remember Vince is never going to let the ECW champ be the WWF champion. Well, until he brought it back in his own image, obviously in 2006. But I think that hurt the ECW title more than it did Taz because Taz still kept going after that, but when he got out of the hardcore division and started branching on his own, his first major feud was JR and the King.
It was a slow burn with Taz. It was one after another that slowly dragged him down.
Yeah, I felt like Taz maybe had some injuries, and that's why he knew his career was winding down because he did get into the broadcast journalism, so now he's got a radio show. So I felt maybe a lot of that was Taz knowing it was winding down at that time. But again, I don't know. That's my guess.
As a fan, I had no idea. I was like, what do they do? How is this guy not? I thought he was going to be a main eventer. Like, maybe if he wasn't, IC championship. It felt confusing as heck to me that he wasn't, that he didn't have a better run.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, remember, who was the first major ECW main eventer to get completely 100% over in the WWE? It was Rob. Everybody else that came from ECW, they either buried immediately, like Shane Douglas, which another career killer almost. Shane Douglas going to being Dean Douglas before he went back to ECW. Thank God he went back. But nobody really, the WWE didn't allow any of them to really get over because Vince, even though Vince was funding them, it was still the competition. And that's how Vince McMahon has always been.
Right.
So
now, around this time, the Attitude Era, we had some interesting characters. We had the Godfather, we had Val Venus, we had Rikishi, but I think all three of them ended up getting their legs cut from underneath them due to the booking. You had the Godfather and Val Venus joining to the Right to Censor, and for me, they were never really the same after that. And then, of course, Rikishi, when he was revealed as the guy that ran over Austin and they turned him heel, I felt like his momentum was just completely cut off. and he never really panned out as a heel. None of them did as heels, and it was only like 6 months to a year later, all of them went back to being baby faces. Joe, your thoughts on those guys?
Well, like Rikishi was so Vince McMahon. That's that was just to do it. Who cares what happens to the guy's career? Who cares about the momentum he already has? We're just gonna do this. And yeah, he never seemed right in my eyes. That never. It made me start thinking. All that did was make me start thinking about how this isn't real, and it brought me out of the character, brought me out of the whole storyline, and messed everything up. And Right to Censor, all their characters essentially committed mutiny on themselves. They went against Val Venus. I mean, how can you be this porn star guy and then be Right to Censor? It's hard to come back from that. You have to be like, you have to come up with a very brilliant storyline or very brilliant character development, or keep a guy off TV long enough to relaunch them after Right to Censor. And I just don't think they cared to.
Yeah, I love that Val. Yeah, I love that Val. Went from that, left TV, went to OVW, came back as Val Venus. Not quite a porn star, but still very much that lewd gimmick. Godfather went to Good Father, and then he came back with not hose, but legitimate escort service. It was like,
I think the Right to Censor did work for one guy, Stevie, who then became Steven Richards.
Steven, yep.
He owned it. I think that gimmick was for him. They should have put a bunch of new people with him and not bring down these other stars. Because I think that was all about Stevie Richards, and I think bringing the other guys in took the attention away from it.
You nailed it, because all those other guys could have eventually came up and broken off to their own characters.
Yeah, like the way Stevie Richards played that part, it was awesome. Like, I popped so much for that, and that was the only guy from that group, even with Ivory, that I cared about.
I think Bull Buchanan, if they'd kept him in that gimmick, being
he was a new guy at the time,
Stevie's muscle. After coming up with the thing with the Boss Man and with Albert, if he'd have come off of that and stayed true to the gimmick and been Steven's muscle, it would have worked great. But again, you brought in Goodfather, who's a big guy, Val, who was a big guy. It watered it down. But much like the NWO, they brought in too many guys that were established.
Do you agree? It should have been Stevie, Buchanan, and maybe Ivory, because you have to have the female in there.
Well,
that would have been a nice little small group.
Yep. I was going to say, having those three against the world, so to speak, because everybody else in WWF was being lewd and, not adult themed, and the three of them could have battled the world and been much more successful. And I think, honestly, when they went in 2001 and had the Cat being forced to join, had Vince not fired the Cat and Jerry leaving, of course, it could have led to something really cool.
Yeah, you could even, and then you could work Bull and Stevie with each other if they break up the group at some point, depending on which guy's the hotter act. You could even work the whole Cat thing with, well, maybe Bull doesn't want to do that to somebody, and they're really double teaming her, and Bull's the one who's like, they could have done so much, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that Ivory and Bull Buchanan made more sense to be in that group than Godfather and Val Venus for sure. And what about Billy Gunn? What about Billy Gunn becoming the one?
You know what? You gotta remember with the Outlaws, it was like I think they were trying to find something for Billy to do because Road Dogg was doing the K-Quick thing, and then he got let go because of the drugs or whatever it was. Billy Gunn, like they wanted him to be a successful single star. They were throwing throwing spit. Yeah, they were king of the ring. They were throwing spit wads at the wall trying to get something to stick with Billy once the Outlaws broke up, and they never really got their steam back behind them. Neither one of them did after that. So until they got back together, how many years later?
The one was better than Rockabilly, though. I mean,
yes,
other than the Honky Tonk Man spot was cool, but that's nostalgia, Come on.
Yeah. I just feel like the one really took away the cool factor for Billy Gunn.
Yeah. Yeah, they tried to make him like very, very serious, I guess. I don't know, like almost like a Ric Flair like type of thing. I don't know what they were doing.
I'm not sure what they were doing with him, honestly. I mean,
I had no idea what they were doing.
I forgot about it, so that's how bad it was.
Oh my God.
Joe, I got one for you, and I'm sure this has to be on Aaron's list. This was the most heat a guy could have had, and then he was gone from wrestling. Muhammad Hassan.
Yes.
Ooh,
what with that? And I know the timing of it was awful. Could they? And you mentioned this before. Could they have saved that? Or was it over? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have kept him off TV for a little while, but I mean, I get the timing was bad and everything, but the guy was great. The character was great. They'd done so much other stuff. I don't know why they didn't just keep going with it and keep the controversy going. I mean, they did it with Sergeant Slaughter when they were getting threats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was a similar thing. Keep it going. I mean, I guess we didn't hear much from Sergeant Slaughter after Mania 7, but
at least they got to the finish. Again, publicly traded. That was probably the issue, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's what his business took over creativity. I mean, so that's really just the answer.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, Sergeant Slaughter's threats shut down WrestleMania. They couldn't have the Coliseum anymore. It was they couldn't do that there. Yeah, ticket sales were low, guys, for the record. Sergeant Slaughter was
that's a good point.
Gimmick.
Jeff, you just nailed it. The ticket sales were in trouble then. They weren't with Muhammad Hassan, so they were playing it safe. Just get rid of this guy, right?
Well, yeah, remember the London attacks in 2005 could be, anything related to what happened in Vegas recently. If it had something similar to that gimmick, there's a fine line that sports entertainment walks with real life. And if they had continued with the Muhammad Hassan gimmick, with those guys continuing to attack, they would have been crapped on completely.
It would have been bad taste, yeah.
It would very bad taste. So I totally understand having the character killed off by having him chokeslam through the roof or whatever happened to him. But I agree with Joe that they could have brought him back as Muhammad Hassan once that whole fervor died down from.
But it literally killed his career. I mean, I thought he was a good talent. He couldn't have even came back in a mask. I mean, that's crazy.
Something I know. And the fact was they kept Daivari and kept putting him with other people, and Daivari just made it work. Sean Daivari is a great talent, way underrated, I think.
No, I agree.
Here's another one for you guys. Carlito. What do you think on Carlito? Wasn't he over? Wasn't he? I mean, couldn't he be really a good, valuable piece today?
I could tell you the moment that killed him. That was when they did that Looney Tunes angle with Hornswoggle backstage, and Carlito ran into the wall. Hornswoggle, painted the fake hole in the wall, and then Carlito ran into it. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That poop pun for that WrestleMania commercial too.
Yeah, to me that was like
Carlito never really recovered from the Acme wall. It was bad. Yeah,
that was definitely like his worst moment. And I want to go back a little bit, back to 2001. Jeff Buff Bagwell, the Invasion.
Oh, there it is.
My buddy Mark. Yeah, it's just unfortunately for Mark in 2000. I mean, remember this is now 16 years ago. Mark's attitude was not what it is today. He went in there with a less than stellar attitude. He had a chip on his shoulder because you know what? He was the guy that was picked to main event the first WWE produced WCW main event. And rightfully so, he was very cocky about it. But I don't think that killed him so much as far as the match at Tacoma. I think what killed Mark's momentum was the fight with Shane Helms. That is the one that buried his WWE career because he came off as a bully.
Right.
Now, sometimes chip on shoulders, if the guy runs with it in a particular way, Enzo Amore, it can really make a difference in your career. So I had to say it because everyone knows I'm a big Enzo supporter. Even though he's not a wrestler, he's an entertainer.
He's an entertainer, yes.
That's so interesting how like different career paths can happen. Look at Enzo and Cass. That could be something that essentially gets Enzo buried because he doesn't have his partner to wrestle for him anymore, even though he has his mouth. All those things were stacked up against him. How did he rise to the top and come out through that? One of the best segments on Raw the other night was that roast of everybody on 205 Live.
Yeah. Enzo's a great performer, and he's definitely, some people thought like this whole Enzo and Cass split was going to ruin things for Enzo, but he's managed to somehow survive and become a bigger star perhaps than he was before.
And stayed healthy. I mean, I was
going to say, let me ask everybody this. Do you think if Cass had not gotten hurt, that Enzo would still have been elevated to where he was?
That's a great question.
They were sending him to 205 Live regardless after the Cass feud. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it would have played out as well, but I think he was going there.
You know what? It's better for Cass in a weird way because you know what? If Cass was still here getting the mediocre response he was getting, and Enzo takes off like this, now you start looking at like, wow, Enzo's the star. Forget Cass.
Yep, exactly.
He's probably, in a weird way, you don't want anybody to be injured, but in a weird way, he's going to be able to come back and hopefully in a better position now because he's not there now.
Let's hope someone's looking out for Cass, though, creatively for a great comeback when he's healthy. That's why I always get concerned about stuff like that.
Well, it's funny. The biggest career killer. Oh, excuse me, career ruiner, Aaron. Yeah. Sorry. Thanks, let me do it again.
We're demonetized.
I know. the biggest career ruiner that could have been but wasn't was Triple H's quadricep injury. That could have been the end of everything for him, and he wouldn't have been where he is today, running the company, things like that. But he took that injury and they worked it into the angle with him and Austin, and then it built and built and built. And then by the time he came back, that is still the biggest pop I've heard from the Garden in history.
Maybe it saves some careers.
Injuries can sometimes save a career because the guy has time to take off TV, get better physically, and then just they can run it back in.
Well, I was saying it was going to save his career because of Triple H being around for the Invasion. Those WCW, ECW guys would have gotten buried even more, especially the WCW guys like DDP and Booker T. They would have been taking the pedigrees.
Yep. What about you mentioned the injury? What about Rob? And by the time Rob got hurt in 2005, his career he was running hard. A bunch of Triple H, they were both running hard, no days off like Darren Young says now, and they were both being pushed to the limit. But having Rob take a year off, having Hunter take almost a year off, really gave him a shot in the arm again. So it really depends on the person, the way they're being booked, and their attitude, whether they come back from an injury or not.
Well, RVD getting busted, I mean, that did him no favors. I wouldn't say it ruined his career, but it certainly derailed his main event push.
But as he said on Talk Wrestling, it was the best thing could have happened for marijuana advocacy on his end. So it really for him
making
it balanced
the sacrifices,
out for WWE.
I guess.
Exactly.
Rob Van Dam is a future WWE Hall of Famer. I mean, we know that. Yep. We know that.
Absolutely. And Rob, Rob's minimum being lost by losing the titles didn't hurt him in the overall scheme of things. It hurt WWE's credibility because their champion's a pothead. It's this is the way it was. It's the way it was back then. Nowadays, probably wouldn't be as big a deal.
The same thing with
what do you think?
Him and Hardy had like a parallel there with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hardy almost, his career almost got ruined because of the suspensions, but lucky he was able to recover from that.
Yeah, I mean,
and to be fair,
it kind of got derailed multiple times.
Well, to be fair, the match was Sting, but you know what, Matt pulled Jeff back up.
Yeah.
Matt pulled Jeff back up.
That was rock there.
I was going to say, Rob didn't walk out on TNA pay-per-view trying to have a main event. That didn't, Jeff Hardy did that, and that was Jeff. We mentioned this on an earlier panel. That was Jeff's fault and management's fault. But like you said, Virtue, Matt pulled him up by his bootstraps and was like, no, you got to get your crap together, dude.
And I think Matt did that with his own personal demons, too, at the time. So I have so much respect for both of those guys, but really Matt Hardy. In the last 18 months, he's become one of my all-time favorites. I don't know. Maybe I'm marking out, but that's the truth.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, they both bounced back from that. I want to ask you guys about Mr. Kennedy because he got suspended. He got injured a bunch of times. And, at one point he was supposed to be Vince's son. That was going to be the big storyline to take him to the top in WWE. And then he came back and then hurt Orton and then got fired. So do you guys think that those moments ruined his career? I mean, he did have a pretty decent run in TNA, but what do you think, Joe?
Well, I think he had injuries. Did he have that wellness policy too at the time? There was I mean, this guy had everything going against him. John Cena, Randy Orton, not happy with how stiff he worked, and then injuries and wellness policy, so that doomed him. But from a fan standpoint, I mean, you couldn't believe that this guy wasn't utilized and pushed to the moon with his voice, his speaking ability. He was kind of like a mini Stone Cold Steve Austin or something at the time. You could see him becoming maybe something more. So yeah, I think it's all that. There was too many things to count why he got booted off.
Yeah, it's like
Joe, I agree with you so much. Like I thought Mr. Kennedy. I made a Yahoo profile with Mr. Kennedy and whatever number I put it. I thought this guy was the next big thing, and they were pushing him that way. And then we all know what happened.
It felt like at the very least he was going to be a very good high mid-card gimmick, but maybe he'd shatter that and move to the next level. Like, Triple H had done or something like that. But
and you know what? Never bury the hatchet because I would like to see him back in WWE one day. I think he could work a hell of a program with Enzo Amore.
He could work a good one with Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bring him back, WWE.
Yeah, very true.
Come on, bring back Anderson if he even wants to go back.
Can you imagine him cutting into like really facing Orton on a Raw or something and saying like that? Yeah, remember me, Orton? I was the guy that you pushed out of the company because you were afraid that I would beat you.
That could be CM Punk type stuff. Not all the way up there, but it could.
He could cut those promos for sure.
And it would help Orton because right now Orton is a walking statue. So
yeah. Oh,
love to see that.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Somebody push Randy Orton to the edge and just get in his face and have a really intense feud. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yep.
I think it might be too late. If they'd done it like 3 or 4 years ago, I think it would have had more of an impact because it's so far now since that all went down.
Well, we've mentioned on the pay-per-view predictions and recaps that Orton is very stale. If they were to have something to inject poison into the Viper and bring that back out of him, like a Mr. Kennedy coming back, that'd be so awesome.
Here's why it would work, because and I know we're not even, we're booking now. The casual fans, but the casual fans would enjoy Orton. They know who he is. You know, they're able to understand Mr. Kennedy because he can speak so well on the mic. So that would flow okay with them, I feel like. But the hardcore fans, you know, that 20% of the crowd, that 30% of the crowd would become like frenzied for it because they would know what's going on. So it would hit on most cylinders and be better than anything they're going to do now with him.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it feels like, you know, I don't think it ruined his career, but it certainly stalled his career. I think everything that's gone on this year with Bray Wyatt and that storyline and the whole feud with Jinder Mahal has hurt Orton this year a lot.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that it didn't ruin his career. I think Orton is one of those guys that is so on that upper echelon, it's going to take a serious, really stupid thing to happen for him to be pushed off that pedestal.
Yeah, I agree on that. I mean, some guys, one mess up and you're totally done. And one example, I think, is Robbie of the Highlanders. I don't know if you guys remember that team, but you know, he showed up on Impact one time, and the cameras just happened to cut to a clip of him in the crowd, and the team basically completely lost their push after that, and that essentially ruined their careers in WWE. Both guys were screwed over because of that.
Yeah, well, we talked about this before, though. Like, when you're working with WWE, you got to have some kayfabe. I mean, I know it's gone, but you have to try to have some because
That's why Paige wore a mask at ringside.
Rusev and Lana and stuff like that, they've basically been buried since you have to keep your life a secret to a point when you're with WWE. You have to.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that real quick? What do you think about Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns taking a photo hugging each other in Greece or wherever it was during this epic fight that they're going through? I thought I wasn't
a fan of it.
It was ridiculous, but obviously it didn't affect them.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, fortunately, I mean, it would have been pretty stupid to kill their pushes, or at least Braun Strowman. I doubt anything would happen to Roman Reigns, but I'm surprised nobody did get punished over that, though, because, that's pretty significant when these two guys are feuding. I think it was Titus that uploaded it, actually, so if anybody was going to get in trouble, it would have been him.
Of course.
Let me ask you guys this. Had it not been for his recent run and comeback to the company, do you think Goldberg's 2003-2004 run was a career ruiner?
Yes and no. I'll just be real quick. No, because we got an awesome match with Chris Jericho because of that. Something that never happened like it should have. Well, it wasn't even supposed to be an awesome match in WCW. It was supposed to be a squash match. But so no, because of that moment, I'm a Jericho fan. No. But
I think when they put the wig, I think when they put the wig on Goldberg, that kind of ruined.
Second week in, they put the Goldust wig on.
That was hard to take Goldberg seriously. And then SummerSlam, I think Goldberg should have won that match, definitely. I think that
the chamber match, I agree with that.
That was like the sign that we were going to get the old Goldberg back, and then they just took it away, right when Triple H.
Joe, what do you think?
I don't know. Goldberg always, when I think of him, then he always seems silly in the WWE to me, even from the beginning.
Yeah,
it just didn't seem
comedic.
Yeah, even from the beginning though, even when he first came out, it didn't seem right. When he came back recently, it felt like Goldberg. It felt like it was real.
Yeah.
So well, it had to have been a killer because it didn't seem they did it right this time.
Well, the very first outing when The Rock was in the ring cutting the promo and Goldberg interrupted him, and he walked out, from the back, and the whole Goldberg entrance where he's walking through the backstage area, comes out, does the pyro, snorts the smoke, walks to the ring, and goes, "All right, Rock, you want to do this next?" And he spears Rock, and the place goes nuts.
Yeah.
But 1 week later, he's in the damn Goldust wig. It was like, oh my god, this is why we didn't want him them to sign Goldberg in the first place in WWE because of crap like that.
Everybody's got to be a comedian.
Normally WWE did that right too. They would have him come in, be a badass, beat The Rock even maybe,
which he did eventually. But
if he would have came in right away and feuded with Jericho, I thought that was a good feud with Jericho.
Yep.
Especially the backstory and the stuff that happened backstage with the fight they had. If that would have been what Goldberg had, I think the ball would have rolled well for him.
Just like what Joe said earlier about Randy Orton and Mr. Kennedy, playing off on that real life and using that to elevate the storyline. That was pretty interesting when they brought up the history between Goldberg and Jericho. Now, we were talking about the whole thing with Goldberg not being taken seriously and being made into a comedy figure. What about Lance Storm? Because he had a lot of credibility, and then they gave him the boring gimmick, which I think really ruined him in WWE. Your guys' thoughts on that? Anybody want to give their thoughts?
Just parallel him with Chris Benoit and how they treated Benoit and how vicious and, this technician and stuff. And then look at what they did with Lance Storm, and there you see the problem.
Yeah. Lance Storm was one of the most. He came off as very serious in ECW, but he and Justin Credible were the best charismatic tag team that company had in many a year. And they bring them both to WWE, and they immediately ruined both of them at their respective times they came in.
I think what hurt Lance Storm was he was overbooked or pushed too hard in WCW when he had every title other than the big title. And I think that kind of made it seem more like a joke than he was actually that good. And I don't think he recovered from that, to be honest with you.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's just my opinion, man.
I actually met him and Mike Awesome at the Nitro Grill out there in Vegas, and I have a picture of myself with the Canadian Championship, and somebody in my group or me holding the Saskatchewan Hardcore International title in my hand. It's just like he's got two, and then on Nitro he won the 100 kilos and underbelt. I was like, this guy's got a lot of gold.
And that was during fading WCW,
Exactly. Had that happened in like 98 WCW or even 99 WCW, it would have been a hell of a lot better.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to talk about a couple of more recent people. I want to talk about Zack Ryder and Damien Sandow. Now, Joe, you and I talked about on the Twitter about Damien Sandow. So he was red hot. He was cooking on gas, as Jeff would say, firing.
Cooking with gas, absolutely. Yeah, firing.
And then
just grabbed a brass ring.
Yeah, he had the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then he lost to John Cena, and he never really recovered after that. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, I mean, I think he kind of did when he came back with that whole thing with Miz, right?
Yeah, because he was so damn entertaining. It was hard for him.
It was hysterical.
As far as being taken seriously as a wrestler, that definitely ended it right there. He's one of the what percent to lose the Money in the Bank, so that right there killed his wrestling career, it seemed. But he came back with the Miz, and here's the thing, that definitely killed it first. But the second thing is this gimmick with the Miz. He was so over, like the crowd was responding to him so greatly. And then he comes out with the whole, what was he doing, Macho Man or Hogan? I can't remember.
With Meta Powers.
The Meta Powers.
Right. So did he, and I can't figure out, did the WWE say, well, wow, you've really proven yourself, go out and do what you want? Because I heard that they allowed him to do what he wanted with that, and it just was a flop. And so after that, he gets released.
Hogan's
release led to the end of the Meta Powers.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Sandow never recovered because they had to take Axelmania off TV.
Hogan's situation affected more than one person. I mean, if it affected Hogan himself, you could say that ruined Hogan's wrestling career. Time will tell if he ever comes back or not. But Hogan's career had a ripple effect, and guys like Axel and Damien Sandow got pushed aside because of that.
Yep.
Why didn't they go right into something with him again, though? Like Panic Button, go right back into something else with him. Him and the Miz, the whole thing ended at Mania. You thought that could have had a bigger build. They did it for a moment, but I feel like they could have done business with that whole rivalry.
I sense they had no backup plan. They have one idea.
They didn't.
And then once it fizzles out or something happens, they have no backup for that guy, and that guy just gets lost in the shuffle.
What's so funny, Virtue, wasn't Aaron Stevens in the system for a long time before that?
Yeah, he was a Triple H guy. That's what makes it so shocking that he did not last in WWE for something else.
Well, there's a lot of Triple H guys going to Raw and the main roster from NXT, and there's no respect.
He was trained by Killer Kowalski, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. You're right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's definitely a hunter guy.
It's crazy. Yeah. I don't. Unless his passion. I hear this. I don't know this for a fact. He's lost his passion.
He was on somebody's X-Pac's podcast after he left TNA, and he mentioned that he was going into acting, and he had lost the passion for the business even before he even went to TNA. TNA was just a quick payday type thing. He had lost it the minute the Mizdow character completely got broken away from the Miz. He was like, I'm done, whatever.
Because if you grab the brass ring as he did, and then it just fizzles out, I mean, you go, well, what am I ever going to do now? You know,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially when it happens at the biggest stage you can be at, because you're making that WWE money. It's depressing when you're not making WWE money. You know,
well, the thing is, you're making WWE money. You've got the contract in your hand that almost guarantees you the world title, and then John Cena buries you with one good arm. By the way, Cena had, which was horrible. Yeah. Like, dude. Sandow attacked him from behind, hit him in the bad arm, and Cena still gets the victory. It was like, dude, if he wasn't buried then, he was definitely buried after the Mizdow thing flopped out too.
This guy should have been in great promotions, great matches for the IC title for years.
With Cody could have had a great feud.
Rhodes Scholars, that was an entertaining team.
Yes.
Here's another one, Aaron. This video could go over an hour. You brought up John Cena and what happened with Sandow. Rusev, WrestleMania, he comes out at WrestleMania, and I've said this 100 times, in a tank at WrestleMania 31. And where is Rusev now, losing pay-per-view matches in less than 10 seconds?
I knew that was going to happen anyways. I knew John Cena was going to win that match. I never had any doubt that Rusev.
But why not have pulled the swerve there and had Rusev do the unthinkable and build a star? WWE's afraid to have new stars.
Yeah.
But you know what though? I thought Rusev was fine up until his loss recently against Cena. I thought that was the one for me that went, okay, this is over. This is Victor Kozlov. You want to talk about stuff? Working with, pretty soon he's going to be working with Santino in a comedic role. And then
yeah, exactly. Well, that whole thing with Ruru and what's her name? Summer Rae.
Oh,
that nearly ruined it for him. I give WWE credit. That's an example of where they were able to rebound him for a bit, but it feels like he's tapering off again. Now I want to mention Zack Ryder, because he was another guy that was really entertaining people and getting over with the fans on his own without the corporate machine, and I guess that's a mistake. Never get over with without the help of the company, and look what happened to him.
They were curtain calling him, Aaron. They were curtain calling him after shows.
They were chanting his name when The Rock was out there at Survivor Series.
Yeah. Zack Ryder was so over. Aaron named him the long shot of the ladder match at WrestleMania. It cost Aaron his freaking hair, okay? That's how over Aaron didn't think Zack Ryder was going to be at a WrestleMania, and WWE swerved everybody, put the strap on him for 24 hours.
Yeah.
He was U.S. champ before then when he was still hot with the internet. The whole stuff with Eve Torres and Kane, I think. Was it Kane?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Ryder was his own worst enemy, because he, as red hot as he was, once he knew WWE and Vince McMahon weren't going to continue to push him, he should have, once his contract expired, and who knows how, I don't know these contract things, he should have went to the Indies. He could have been the first Cody Rhodes and Drew Galloway that went out to the Indies and got bigger because of.
But all he knew is that he was doing the right thing and he was getting a response from the crowd. Even Cena and CM Punk were egging them on. This was before Daniel Bryan. He was the first Daniel Bryan. He was the guy that the fans started to want to push. And that's a telltale sign that other things in the company, you're doing it wrong, when the fans are just choosing some guy randomly, seemingly.
Yeah.
And seriously, on Punk's DVD bio they put out, whatever it was, when he was still hot. There's a video of Zack Ryder on that DVD saying Punk made me because of the Internet Championship and him getting it over. Without Punk, there is no Zack Ryder. He said that himself.
And that could have, that could have ruined it, because Vince could have maybe knew that this is guy Punk supports, and even before Punk left, they were having problems. So again, I think Zack Ryder maybe had a lot of the wrong friends in the way.
Oh, it's just so funny.
Put him as an IC champion then, though. They should have said, well, this guy will be the new Razor or something, But
yeah. Zack Ryder went out and went to a belt maker and actually had the Internet Championship belt made. I've seen the maker that has it. This belt is, it looks hokey, but it's actually a pretty gorgeous looking belt.
I agree.
He got it over on YouTube when very few people were doing stuff on YouTube, and he still went out there and made it his own. And
if I remember correctly, he was up there top 3, 4, or 5 in merch sales.
Yes, he was for a long time.
Yeah, he was. He was selling a ton of merchandise, and then Yeah, I think that Eve Torres thing with the wheelchair and all that, I think that really did him in.
Yeah, well, but it's funny. The IC title win happened after that, where we had the infamous Aaron Ripped hair loss. But yeah, I think what really ruined Zack's momentum was the injury that he had. He went off TV, and then rather than come back to WWE TV, they had to go to NXT, make the hype bros, Aaron. And that really didn't do any favors for him. It helped Mojo tremendously, but didn't help Zack's momentum at all.
Yeah, it's just they booked him like he was a loser, you know, and
yes,
it's hard for the
exactly.
fans to cheer for a loser. You know, they just booked him like a total geek, a nobody. And, yeah, the crowd started losing interest in him.
Speaking of something total, how about the total package Lex Luger becoming the narcissist? That was very close to killing ruining his momentum.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I think.
I agree on that, and, you know, they rectified that. But I think when WCW made him the total package and turned him heel, I thought that pretty much made me no longer care about Luger at all in WCW.
Right. Well, it's funny.
I think him joining the NWO was his downfall because, actually, I would like to talk about Sting and Luger because both of them were red hot in WCW, and I think, you know, you could argue for Sting's Starrcade 97 with Hogan. That was the beginning of his downfall, ruining him. But when Sting and Luger joined the Wolfpack, to me as a fan, that made no sense whatsoever because these guys were feuding with them for the longest time, and then all of a sudden they're cool with Nash and all those other guys.
It never felt right. You're right. It never felt right, and they watered it down.
Yeah, it was definitely very watered down.
Well, it was so bad because Luger was the hottest babyface they had for almost 2 years. He was still a babyface in the Wolfpack, and then the infamous Georgia Dome Nitro, where the Wolfpack turned heel, Luger comes in to save Goldberg, and then he attacks Goldberg. It's like, okay, so Lex, let me get this straight. You've been fighting the bad guy NWO for almost 3 years, and now you're with Hogan and the rest of the elite NWO? Got it.
Yeah, but Luger coming out with that music and doing the whole total package thing, nobody cared about him at that point.
Well, the problem was he was trying to be the total package while being the narcissist.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it basically was WCW's version of the narcissist with the music and
very much was.
Him just doing the posing. But yeah, I thought that the NWO stuff really hurt both of those guys. So are there any other examples you guys want to bring up before we wrap this up? Any that we have not mentioned yet? Anything off the top of your head?
I had two. One's kind of a joke, and the other one is more serious. But I actually had Karma on my list because she got pregnant. that ruined her, kind of killed her.
That's kind of a career ruiner. Yeah, unfortunately.
But I also actually had China on here for the porn stuff. You know.
Well, now, you know what? I think China's wrestling career was well done by the time she actually started doing the porn stuff. I think China's career ruiner was the fact that she was no longer the future Mrs. H. I think that was. I think that. I mean,
and I think the porn stuff hurt her chances of going into the Hall of Fame. But then again, WWE inducted a convicted rapist into the Hall of Fame.
And again, due to nothing she really did, that ruined her career. Their relationship ruined her career, which she didn't. It made no sense.
Right, it wasn't her fault.
And she was on top of the world at the time, so that's why it's just so like she should have had another 2 or 3 years.
Yep. Here's another one that really got ruined and then like kind of came back, but he wasn't the same. The Iron Sheik with the drug bust with Duggan. Yeah. Way back when. Iron Sheik went away, went to the NWA, came back as Colonel Mustafa because that made sense. And then, but Duggan somehow recovered. So that was good for Duggan.
That is a good point.
The Sheik was ruined forever.
Yeah, if you watch Sheik's documentary, that definitely seemed to be a downfall for him.
Here's another recovery. Maybe not at the same, at a big level, but this is a non-wrestler. Vince Russo left probably the greatest situation that any employee of that stature could have to work for the competition, and we all know how that turned out. But then he did have, I think his TNA run is very underrated. I think he did great things for TNA. They had their highest ratings when he was writing shows. So from that standpoint, I think he resurrected his career. But you left Vince McMahon and what WWE Attitude Era was doing because your ego to end up beating what you helped create. That to me was a bad choice.
Well, I didn't.
He has his reasons why he left.
Right.
I respect that.
Vince felt his family wasn't being put first. So
yeah, I respect that.
I wonder if Russo had not left, how long he would have stuck around in WWE. I mean, at some point they might have wanted to have a committee, and Russo would have got ousted out anyways. Maybe he just saw the writing on the wall, saw WCW was struggling, and figured to take a chance where he could make the big money.
He told us more than once in conversations there that he left the WWF in '99 because they added SmackDown, and he was writing weekly television 2 times a week. He was done, and his family wasn't getting the Vince Russo family needed.
Nitro was 3 hours. I know.
Ferraro.
Nitro was 3 hours, and you had Thunder too. So that's actually more television.
But right. Well, Vince's whole thing was he was trying to be a family man at the same time as being the WWF's head writer, and McMahon himself said you can't do that. Right. So
it's just interesting because I again the next panel video we're going to have is going to be very tough for me. Aaron, you can explain maybe what that's going to be about, but I don't know how many. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one for me. It's
going to be an interesting one. But we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. I would like to thank Joe very much for being on. It was a pleasure to have you on. Any plugs you have? I'm sure you do.
No, I mean, youtube.com/Joe Cronin Show is my channel. And my Twitter for right now is at Real Joe Cronin.
Yeah, I know. You've had like 3 or 4 of them over the past couple of weeks here.
I just want to say thank you to you guys because, I've always listened to the show for years. You guys are one of the first. I think you guys are really the first or one of the first shows on the internet, that I ever picked up on that was doing audio reviews of wrestling and things like that. And the website, of course, NoDQ.com. So it's kind of an honor to be on here, to be honest.
Well, thank you.
I always say we were YouTube before YouTube was a thing.
Right.
So, we were. So it's awesome to have somebody like you who, has taken what we did and just, we appreciate you being on.
Yeah, we definitely love to have you on for more videos in the future.
Please do, yes.
Maybe some review videos or predictions. We'll try to get you on for another video in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
And I'm sure there'll be Fire Virtue and Hire Joe in the comments.
Yes, they're going to say replace Virtue with Joe.
You'll probably have some I Hate Joe too, so don't worry.
Yeah, probably.
Not that many. I think you're pretty popular. Anybody who speaks out and speaks their mind is pretty popular on my channel. We like the outspoken type on our channel.
At the end of the day, they hate Roman Reigns, but they're still paying to see him.
That is true.
I think I've converted a lot of people over in the past 6 months. I honestly do.
You're making Roman fans?
Yes.
Definitely me, brother. Definitely me.
Give yourself
I'll go into an hour rant on that, but that's.
I have my reasons, Joe. Though I think you'd appreciate him from my perspective.
Roman will never work until Daniel Bryan comes back and gets back over on him with the fans.
That's a good point.
Tonight.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Follow Jeff at _Jeff Meacham and follow Virtue at NoDQ_Virtue. You can follow me at Aaron Rift on all platforms of social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. No longer MySpace, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And that'll wrap it up for this edition of the No DQ panel. We will see you all next time.